Hey there, I'm Julie, and this is the Married to Addiction podcast. If you're here, then you're probably what I call my secret sister. We're in a situation we never asked to be in and fighting a battle we never wanted to fight. We're faith-filled women who are married to an alcoholic, and it affects every inch of our lives. If that sounds like you, then this is a safe place for you to land. Married to Addiction is a faith-based podcast where I help you find the tools and strength you need to navigate your husband's addiction without losing yourself in the process. So please subscribe and tune in as often as you can, because your husband's recovery is important, but so is yours. If you're the wife of an alcoholic and you struggle with triggers, overthinking, or emotional exhaustion, I have a free resource just for you. I created my Turning Point Toolkit for the moments when everything feels like it's going sideways. When a comment or a look or even a broken promise sends your nervous system into overdrive and you're just trying not to spiral. This free toolkit gives you simple, private tools to help your body settle, quiet overthinking, detach without guilt, and break out of the exhausting patterns that keep you stuck and resentful, all while staying rooted in your faith. It's not about fixing everything or having the perfect response. It's about calming your nervous system so you can take faithful, grounded action in the moment. You don't have to wait until things fall apart to get support. You can get instant access to the Turning Point Toolkit right now at turningpointtoolkit.com. Go grab yours today so you can finally have something to reach for when triggers hit. Hello, and welcome into episode 122 of the Married to Addiction podcast. This episode is called How to Regain Your Calm in 3 minutes or less. So today we're talking about something that I honestly wish that I personally could do over. So I wanted to share this topic with you and kind of dive into how you can do things a little bit differently. So, when you're living with an addicted husband, there are frequent moments when something happens and your emotions spike instantly. Maybe it's something he says, maybe it's something you just notice, maybe it's just the sound of a bottle opening or the tone in his voice. And suddenly your heart is racing, your chest feels tight, and before you even begin to realize it, you're reacting already. You're defending yourself, you're explaining, you're arguing, you're confronting, or you're trying to just fix the situation in the moment. But later, when things calm down, you think to yourself, I wish I had handled that differently. So that happened to me like probably 10,000 times when my husband was deep in addiction. And it wasn't until after I started working on my own recovery that I realized that I was actually a big part of the chaos, because sometimes I would react in a way that was not appropriate for that particular moment. But I had a hairpin trigger and I was always in reaction mode. So I would like react first and think later. So if any of that sounds familiar to you, first know that we all do this as wives of alcoholics. Because when you live in an environment that feels unpredictable, your nervous system learns to react quickly in order to protect you. And sometimes it goes a little bit overboard. But that reaction is an attempt for your body to try to keep you safe. But what many women don't realize is that creating even a really small pause before you react can change the direction of the moment entirely. And over time, the way that you react in moments like these can actually change things dramatically for you and even possibly for your husband as well. So today, I want to introduce you to a simple tool that you can use in these moments called the 3-minute check-in. But before we talk about what the check-in looks like, let's talk about why this pause is so important. When we react emotionally in the heat of a moment, we often reinforce patterns that keep us stuck. So those patterns look like trying to control the situation, over-explaining yourself, jumping into arguments that go nowhere. Man, that was a big one for us, I remember. Or just saying things that you wish you could take back later, or doing things that you wish you could take back later. These patterns are all part of what's called codependent dynamics. And again, these patterns usually come from a very understandable place, because when you care deeply about someone and your environment feels unstable, your brain is constantly trying to solve the problem. But reacting quickly often pulls you deeper into the chaos rather than helping you step out of it, which is what we're ultimately trying to do, right? What a pause does is it gives your body and your mind a moment to settle. So even a few minutes can allow your response to come from clarity instead of survival mode or reaction mode. And that shift, as I said, can be incredibly powerful. Also, looking back, I can see clearly that reacting based on my emotions in the moment just perpetuated the dynamic of division between me and my husband. And we certainly did not need any help in that department. And I think that ultimately that affected his recovery timeline. So back then it always felt like me against him instead of us against the addiction, which, as I've mentioned in the past, he has told me he cites that as being one of the most helpful changes that happened to get him to and keep him in recovery. So just know that this is really something to seriously consider doing a little bit differently. So let's talk about this 3-minute check-in. The check-in in itself is very simple. It's just a short moment of awareness before you respond. So think of it kind of like in 3 different parts. So the first part is breath. When your emotions spike and your breathing starts to come shallow and fast, which often does happen when you start getting a little bit riled up, right? Taking a moment to intentionally slow down your breathing can begin calming your nervous system. Breath is one of the fastest ways to signal to your body that it's safe enough to pause. And that's huge. Even just taking that minute really just helps your body refocus and kind of get out of that instant fight or flight. The second part is body awareness. So this means just simply noticing what's happening physically inside you. So you might ask yourself, okay, what body sensations am I feeling right now? So you might notice things like tightness in your shoulders. I would get that all the time. Or maybe a knot in your stomach, or tension in your jaw, something like that. If you're noticing those types of sensations, you are helping to bring awareness back into your body instead of being swept away and or pulled under by the emotion. The third part of this is belief. So this is where you're going to ask yourself a gentle question like, what story am I telling myself right now? In stressful moments like this, our minds often jump to conclusions very quickly, right? And usually those are worst case scenarios. So maybe the story you're telling yourself in that moment is, he doesn't care about me, or this is never going to change, or I have to fix this right now. Simply noticing that story that you're telling yourself in that moment can actually create a surprising amount of space between the emotion and your response. Now, you may still decide to speak. You may still decide you need to set a boundary, but you'll be doing it with intention instead of reaction. And that's everything. So how do we build this habit? How do we get ourselves to actually do this? Because in the moment, it all sounds great when you're listening to it on a podcast and things are calm. But in the moment, especially if you've been doing things really differently, like I was for a really long time, you're not going to just automatically start to do this. This is a habit that you have to build, just like anything else. One important thing to know about tools like this is that they work best when they become familiar. So you may want to start with something as simple as just deciding that you'll have a dedicated place where you will go when you feel emotions rising. And you might want to practice this in a different situation where it's not something that's going on with your husband. Maybe it's something else that's stressing you out. Before you need to utilize this in a situation with your husband, you can start practicing it in other situations so that it does become more familiar. So if you decide that you're going to have a dedicated place to go when you feel like you're getting a little ramped up, maybe you decide you're going to go to the bathroom, for example, just to give yourself a minute. So that way, the only decision that you have to make when you feel triggered right in that moment is go to the bathroom. That seems a lot easier, right? Instead of trying to think, okay, I need to do the 3-minute thing, the 3-step thing. What were the steps? Remember, just go to the bathroom in that moment. Because in that moment, you're not going to have a lot of bandwidth to really be thinking through much because you're already in a heightened state of awareness, right? So that's the first step, is just decide where you can go. You could keep a small reminder somewhere where you'll see it, maybe as the wallpaper on your phone. We pick up our phones a bunch, right? So something like that could be helpful. It's also helpful to practice doing this check-in, like I said, when you're not in the middle of a stressful moment. So when your body is running high, that's probably like super high, and another person's involved, like your husband, that's probably going to be the hardest time to try to start practicing this. When your body starts recognizing the rhythm, though, because you've done it before, when you're not in the middle of a situation with your husband, then it's going to be easier to return to that when you are in the middle of that situation. Remember that the goal here isn't perfection. The goal is simply learning that you don't have to respond immediately and that you are allowed to pause. So try to think this through before you need it. Try to practice this before you need it. Maybe, you're at home and the kids are yelling and the dog is barking and you're just like, whoa, I feel like way overstimulated right now. Go to the bathroom, right? Tell yourself, okay, I need to take a minute before I start screaming at everyone. Maybe I should reframe that so that I don't say anything that I regret and just go to the bathroom. And so you can practice this before you actually need it with your husband. It probably sounds kind of simplistic in theory, right? But in real life, you probably will find it challenging, especially if your nervous system has been living in high alert for a long time. So that's why I really want to encourage you to practice this beforehand. Doing things like this are so powerful, and we really underestimate this as the wife of an alcoholic. But I can tell you, I reacted from a place of nervous system overload all the time when my husband was deep in addiction. And as I said, I really wish that I could go back and do things differently. But I didn't know how to do things differently because I didn't even know that my nervous system needed help back then. I had no clue. I just always thought this is a him problem and I'm drowning because everything that he's doing, not realizing that I had way more control over how I was going through that experience. So I just want to take a minute to remind you that that's one of the reasons why the Secret Sister Circle exists. And actually, I also want to let you know that there is a free 7-day trial for the Secret Sister Circle. That is available right now, and I really encourage you to take advantage of that, especially if you've been kind of on the fence about it or if you haven't really understood what it's all about. It's a great, great time to hop in there and grab your trial. So, of course, you can do that at secretsisterscircle.com. But inside of the SSC, we talk a lot about these everyday moments, these small situations where emotions rise and it's hard to know how to respond. In fact, there's a lesson in there that really walks you through this whole concept. It's called React or Reset. So right now you could actually get access to that lesson for free since you are able to sign up for your first 7 days for free right now. So please take advantage of that. So the next time you feel that rush of emotion starting to rise in the moment, before it explodes, before it goes sideways, before it turns into a big thing that's probably going to drain you for the rest of the day, maybe the whole rest of the next day, and that you might end up regretting. Just remember this. You don't have to react right away. In fact, 9 times out of 10, it's better if you don't. You are allowed to pause. Give yourself some space. Take just 3 minutes to do those steps. Breathe. Notice what's happening in your body and question the story that your mind is telling you in that moment. Because sometimes that small moment of awareness is all it takes to change the direction of what happens next. And those small shifts, moment by moment, can help create a steadier, more peaceful life, and also may end up positively influencing your husband as well. So until next time, I also want to remind you to take good care of you, because you're worth it. See you next time. Hey, one more quick thing before I let you go today. Do you follow Married to Addiction on either Instagram or Facebook, or both? If not, I would love to have you join me over there. It's a great place to stay connected with everything that's happening with Married to Addiction. I post updates about my podcast episodes, of course. I post about my freebies. I post about my programs. I post encouragement in the way of Bible verses and things like that. I also post just like some helpful little teaching nuggets sometimes too. So I really think that you would get a lot of value out of that as the wife of an alcoholic. And I would love to have you join me on either Facebook or Instagram, or both. You can find me at facebook.com/married to addiction, or just at married to addiction on Instagram. I hope to see you there.